Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology turned podcast. And everyone, welcome into the program. And you know, before the show, Ralph is kind enough to key me in on what we're going to be talking about before the program here. And, I really appreciate that. But sometimes story number 4 in particular, we're going to talk about how your next doctor may be a tapeworm. Not a tapeworm, hookworm. I'm sorry. That's very, worms of all kinds just look the same to me. So we're going to be talking about a lot of fun stories. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm getting ahead of myself. Welcome into Computer America, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including the show notes, has the story I just talked about, and more. Has everything you need to know if you get lost or if you want to go back and check something. Everyone, computeramerica.com, you can see it all there. Also there, you'll find contest giveaways, show notes, podcast, video archive, everything and more. And of course, all of Ralph's segments if you want to go back and see some of those other ones. And in the meantime, everyone, thank you for tuning into Computer America. A quick shout out to all the fathers out there. Happy Father's Day, because by the time that you hear this, it will be Father's Day. And to everyone out there who has fathers and didn't realize it, hurry up and get that done. So yeah, good luck out there. And so with all that said, everyone, let's just have fun with today's show. Have Ralph on, and he picked out some amazing stories. And let's just go ahead. So once again, he is our science and tech trends correspondent, joins us every Friday on the program to talk about weird, amazing, strange stories that just don't quite make it into the main show. Everyone, welcome back into the program, Ralph Bond. How you been?
I'm doing great. And you know what? If our stories today are weird and strange, they perfectly match the world we live in these days. That's for sure.
Very true.
This is going to be an uplifting experience, but let me set the stage for anyone who's brand new to the show. Welcome. And if you're watching us on YouTube or if you're listening to us on podcast, it's great to have you. And let me explain what we do every Friday. So Ben and I, every Friday, we highlight 4 articles that show us key trends and developments in all things science and tech, including, of course, almost every single story involves artificial intelligence. And it applies to robotics, medical technology, sustainable energy technology, transportation advances, agricultural technology, construction technology, space research, physics, on and on and on. But most important of all, especially given the news world we live in these days, we're going to give you hope for a better future thanks to amazing breakthroughs happening every single day in the world of science and technology.
Absolutely. And for anyone out there who's just listening, we appreciate that. Anyone out there watching, we appreciate that as well. And you can, of course, follow along with the show notes as we, kind of get things going. And you can see here, we're going to show videos, demonstrations, the papers, the articles. But by and large, you'll get you'll get all the information you need by listening. And if you are watching, you can see that our first story is going to be about, robotics. And, have a soft spot for UF. That's someone in my family went there. So always nice to see them in the news. And this one for something that, I guess, obviously, for anyone out there who owns a submersible, I get it. This story is going to be welcome news to you. For everyone else out there, you might go, oh, I didn't even know this was really a problem. But yeah, let's talk about story number 1.
Yeah, this is a great one from the University of Florida. A really cool technology breakthrough here. So the headline here is a new frontier for marine robot communication. University of Florida scientists developed something called BlueME, and the ME stands for Blue Magneto-Electric. And we'll explain all this as we go into the story. So let's get started. Oh, by the way, in the show notes, you'll see in some cases blue text. The blue text are additional bits of information that I've inserted to expand on the article, because a lot of times the authors of these articles figure they're speaking to a highly knowledgeable technical audience. That's not me. And so therefore I help myself, and I hope I help all of you with blue text inserts that explain things. So going on from that, let's get into this. Scientists at the University of Florida are working on a new technology that could solve one of the ocean's biggest communication problems: underwater wireless signals. Oh, okay. Right now, the ocean is essentially a giant wireless dead zone because radio waves, the kind used for cell phones and Wi-Fi, for example, do not travel well through salt water. I think pretty much all of us would kind of imagine that's the case. Instead, underwater robots and submarines and all kinds of communications that goes on underwater often rely on slow acoustic signals or sound waves or bulky wired communications.
Yeah.
And wired communications would be highly restrictive.
My immediate thought is, of course, to the not Deepwater Horizon, the submersible with all the billionaires that went under and went to the Titanic.
Oh gosh,
that just exploded. Like, yeah, they had a giant cable that, you know, if you watch any of the documentaries about it, Ralph, they'd be like, oh yeah, you know, the communication and power goes out for like 3 or 4 hours, but that's normal. Stuff like that. So
yeah, that's actually a good point to raise in terms of the critical nature of communications under the water. So going back to the story, researchers at the University of Florida have developed a tiny new type of antenna called a magnetoelectric antenna that may dramatically improve underwater communication. And there's a word in this sentence that's key to what we do every week: may dramatically improve. We look often at early research results where the researchers are saying, we've discovered something, but we're not claiming it's deployable right now next week. It may take years to develop. So keep that in mind. And there's a side note inserted. If you want to learn about what magnetoelectric material is all about, you can go and read that. It has to do, though, I will read a part of this. This has to do with material in which the magnetic and electric responses are intrinsically linked. In the most general sense, the magnetoelectric effect is any coupling between magnetic and electric properties. It's very geeky stuff. You need to get to the research paper, which we have a link for if you want to really understand this more fully. But going on, unlike traditional antennas, which struggle underwater and often require lots of power, this design that the University of Florida team has come up with uses magnetic and electric fields together to send signals through seawater more efficiently. And you like this part, Ben. Remarkably, the system reportedly works with only about 10 watts of power, roughly similar to a small LED light bulb. Imagine that.
Yeah, this is really starting to sound like, you know, a lot of these sensors that I think are in the ocean. I know that a lot of them are attached to like buoys up on the surface, and then they drop the sensors down, but everything is kind of kept above water, so, you know, it can do signals and stuff like that. Ralph, this seems like it has a real possibility of reducing, you know, kind of the load, the money, and increasing the capacity of monitoring oceans. This seems really good.
Yeah, it is very promising. And in terms of range, here's what the article talks about. And the underwater signal range of the BlueME technology exceeds 700 meters. That's approximately 2,296 feet. Now, is that going to solve all underwater communications, this range? No, but this is the very early results of their research, which they've just published, right? And so the technology could be especially useful for underwater robots, ocean sensors, you mentioned that, and autonomous submarines and scientific monitoring systems. So instead of relying on expensive cables or slow sound-based communications, machines underwater might someday exchange information more quickly and with less energy. And to wrap this up here, we've got a few more bits here to go. This could improve marine research, environmental monitoring, military operations, and even underwater infrastructure inspections, which you alluded to with these buoys that currently, you know, monitor devices and so forth underwater, but they have long cables and that sort of thing. But we could get rid of all that and have something much more efficient. Now, to wrap things up, it says, however, the technology is still experimental, right? Researchers must prove it works reliably over longer distances and in real-world ocean conditions before it becomes widely used. Even so, scientists see it as a potentially important breakthrough for making the ocean a far more connected place in terms of communications. Pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's really taking one of those barriers that is so fundamental. And yeah, as soon as you can track something, measure something, then hey, you can do something pretty proactive in there. So, Ralph, I'll be honest, like that seemed very much, I'm sure that the military would be very interested in something like that, even if it's just kind of monitoring, the borders and stuff like that, a couple thousand feet down. That's very impressive. So,
yeah.
Awesome from the University of Florida. Also awesome for these researchers. And yeah, I'm sure that one has a lot of potential. I think everyone out there can imagine, their router at home for Wi-Fi and just how annoying, like, let's say a wall is or something like that. The ocean just being a giant wall of water. This is a really big accomplishment. So good for them.
It certainly is.
Like that a lot. So story number one. Story number two. And I guess if we're going to monitor the ocean, we might as well also take some of the kelp. There's lots of that stuff down there. It's from my understanding, it's obviously kind of a cornerstone of its own kind of environments, but also highly renewable. It's it's just everywhere. I'm sure if you, I know, like off the coast of California, have never surfed or swim there, but I hear there's lots of kelp out there. But hey, it's pretty cool stuff. And turns out it may be also very, very useful for fuel. Very interesting. So Ralph, story number two.
It is a really interesting thing. And here's a trend that Ben and I have been covering now for quite a few years. There is a worldwide effort, relentless, unstoppable effort. We will get there to replace fuels, biofuels or fossil-based fuels, fossil-based fuels with biofuels. And this fits very nicely in here. Again, looking at kelp as a source for doing this. This story comes from The Cool Down on MSN.com. The headline here is Scientists Bred a Fast-Growing Kelp that could fuel ships and aircraft without needing to use fossil fuels. So this is a really cool development. This is another great American innovation because it comes from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. Scientists there are breeding fast-growing strains of sugar kelp to create a new source of liquid biofuel. And a little side note here that I did insert, and I will read because I said Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. Okay, who are these guys? I've heard of Scripps, but who are these guys? Well, the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution is in Woods Hole, Massachusetts, on the southwestern tip of Cape Cod. It's one of the world's leading centers for ocean science, engineering, and marine exploration. So I'm a better person for knowing about these guys because I didn't know about them at all before.
I feel bad for being a world leader in such an important field, and I'm like, Woods Hole, never heard of it. So thank you, Ralph.
That is, it's pretty cool. So the goal of this research is to provide sustainable fuel alternatives for ships and aircraft, which cannot easily switch to battery electric power. Key thought here. These folks are saying, look, we all wish we could live in a world where everything's battery powered and we have renewable energy to create the electricity to charge up these batteries. All that would be great. But let's get real. There's a lot of vehicles out there that cannot make this switch easily. And so can we come up with a biofuel to power them? And that's exactly what's the motivation going on here. And the advantages of using fast-growing strains of sugar kelp include, well, the kelp, of course, grows in the ocean, so no farmlands needed, requires no fresh water, that's important, requires no pesticides, big issue now, can produce up to 3 times the biomass of standard kelp strains. So the sugar kelp that they're working with is really productive, 3 times the biomass of standard kelp strains out there in the ocean. Wow.
sounds useful to me. And really it's, sugar kelp, and I know sugar cane is also being used to, make these biofuels as well. It's there's a lot of positives.
Yeah. And researchers cultivate kelp gametophytes, hope I'm saying that right, which are microscopic cells, under controlled conditions and select for traits like faster growth and higher biomass. So they're, monkeying around with the internal workings of this sugar kelp.
Yeah, it's really the same thing. Like if you look at the pictures of kind of pre-industrial corn and post-industrial corn, where corn today doesn't exactly look like the wild corn of its ancestors. But yeah, Ralph, this is an example of the dreaded GMO. So yeah, they're selectively breeding.
There you go.
Productive kelp.
Yeah. And then here's the part where it becomes fuel. The kelp is converted into fuel using hydrothermal liquefaction, a process that uses heat and pressure to turn biomass into liquid fuel. And the conclusion here is pretty self-evident. This approach could help countries, and I inserted a little blue aside, industries. I think it's really industries are looking for this. Countries and industries, seeking cleaner, non-petroleum fuel options for long-distance transportation. So salute to Woods Hole team for doing this, and I think this has a great promise. And again, it's research now, early results. Let's see if it can get into the real world and power our vessels.
Absolutely. And, just like we say often, because if this is your first time, folks, we say things often. So, you hear one and you've heard all the shows. But no, it's going to take a little bit of everything. As much as we'd like new battery technology and more batteries and that kind of thing. No, Ralph, it's going to take solar, it's going to take wind, it's going to take tidal, it's going to take biofuels and stuff like that to completely get off of fossil fuels. And yeah, it's going to happen one day. There's really no turning that around. So, which is good for everyone, really. It's, renewable energy is really amazing energy. So, story number 2, story number 3, even if your car is not running on seaweed in the future, let's talk about story number 3, where we have a robot that, you see drones, you see cameras, you see your doorbell camera, and you're like, okay, that might be looking at me. That's probably capturing enough, whatever. Well, looks like someone decided that they needed to make a robot that not only could get itself around, but also see in all directions.
Yes.
Why? I don't know. But hey, this robot's going to be way more capable of a search and rescuer than I would ever be. So, Ralph, story number 3, and this weird germ-looking robot.
Yeah, it's fast. I absolutely, totally love this story in the field of robotics. This comes from the AP News Service story I picked up. The headline is Introducing Argus, that's ARGUS, a robot with 20 legs and eyes built to move and see in any direction instantly. And by the way, my curiosity, Argus, that just rang a bell for some reason. Well, it's related, I'm guessing this is where they got the name. The myth, the great Greek myth of Jason and the Argonauts, known as the quest for the golden fleece, is one of the most celebrated adventures in ancient Greek mythology, right? But the ship was built by a craftsman named Argus. So maybe the researchers named it after the mythological craftsman who came up with the ship for Jason and the Argonauts. TBD, I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing. If anything can convince you to please come out to computeramerica.com, get today's show notes, because you're going to want to look at the video of this robot. It's absolutely compelling. You'll immediately go, oh, I get it. I see why this is compelling and why this has really great real world application. Right?
The video is definitely worth a watch.
Yeah, and this is another accomplishment by American-based researchers. So researchers at Duke University in Durham, North Carolina, have created an unusual new robot called Argus, designed to move and see in any direction instantly. And when you see the pictures and or watch the video, you go, oh, I get it. Unlike many robots, and I think this is a really good point, unlike many robots that are built to resemble humans, dogs, or insects, the engineers behind Argus wanted to rethink robot design from the ground up. And boy, did they ever. Instead of copying nature's shapes, they focused on making a robot that can move equally well in every direction. Fascinating. Argus looks a bit like a spiky ball or sea urchin. That's a good comparison. It has 20 telescoping legs, each equipped with a depth sensing camera, all connected to a central core. Oh, wow. So cool. Because it has no front, back, top, or bottom, the robot can instantly change direction without needing to turn around, unlike, say, a Boston Dynamics robotic dog. This gives it a major advantage in rough and unpredictable environments. And boy, when I saw the video and started really learning about this, my mind just went to every possible kind of application. It's just so compelling. It's really one of the best robotic stories I've covered in years, to be honest with you.
It really, just seeing the video, and especially with it, kind of scaling the wall, the two walls, kind of going back and forth, really shows just the mobility and the possibility of this thing. It's really fun just watching it roll around. It's almost okay. So everyone out there who's just listening, it's like a tumbleweed, but it has these little arms that kind of poke out that help it maneuver. So, the bottom ones kind of push out to give it a forward momentum. And then of course it just rolls on to the next set of legs and it can push in any direction. It is so out of the box compared to, like you said, Ralph, all the other robots we're used to. It is incredibly mobile.
Yeah, it's just stunning. I please come out and get the images and or the video. So in testing, Argus successfully traveled across beaches, forests, and uneven ground, rolled over obstacles, and recovered quickly after being pushed, which again, the video so well shows. It can even climb between two close walls and keep functioning if some legs or motors stop working. That's important. It has the ability, if one of the legs malfunctions or something, no problem. It just responds to that and keeps going, right? Because it has 20 legs to work with to start with. Researchers say this resilience could make it useful for dangerous jobs, such as search and rescue missions or exploring difficult terrain. Endless possibilities, in my opinion. Just blows my mind.
Yeah, my immediate thought is if you could shrink this down a little bit, Ralph. There have been a couple stories in recent history, and even just like a week or two ago, about like cave divers who are stuck in a cave, or mine collapses and stuff like that. Something like this would definitely be able to get into those tight, dangerous places and kind of scout it out. So very cool.
That's a very good point. Imagine a situation where there's been an explosion, to your point, or a building's been demolished and you have this higgledy-piggledy, rough-edged pile of debris, right? Most robots would have a lot of trouble going through in that. This guy could easily maneuver all of that kind of uncertain, uneven terrain. It's just so compelling.
Yep, it seems like it can handle forest or well-manicured university grounds just as easily. So,
yes.
Ralph, like honestly, seeing it roll around Duke University kind of makes me want to go. That place is only a couple hours for me. I'm like, I want to go. I want to see if I just see a weird robot just rolling around the campus. That's
hey, maybe you can contact him. You should reach out to him and say, "Hey, can I come and see it in person?"
Absolutely. So there you go. Story number 3. Awesome-looking robot. There you go. So story number 3. Story number 4, we're going to jump over to, like Ralph usually does, story number 4, medical news. And he'll talk about why we do that and what we do. But this has to do with drug delivery. And that's also been something that is, Ralph, even with all the stories that we have done over the years, still something worth exploring. So story number 4.
Well, this is the most unusual and kind of creepy way to get drugs into a person that I've come across on a long time here. This comes from bioengineer.org. Really good outlet, by the way. Headline: genetically engineered hookworms developed to produce and deliver therapeutic agents. Oh my gosh, come out into the show notes. Look at the pictures of these critters. They are spooky looking little devils. Yikes. Anyway, let's get into this. Another American achievement here, folks. Hey, this is America Day. Researchers at Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis, Missouri, have genetically engineered hookworms to act as living drug factories inside the body. What a great line. Living drug factories inside the body. Just let that sink in. Instead of causing disease, these modified parasites are designed to produce and deliver helpful medicines over long periods of time. This is a gross out in some respect, but also just absolutely incredibly clever. This could eventually provide a new way to treat chronic illnesses or protect people from dangerous toxins. Now, here we go. As a proof of concept, the scientists altered the hookworm's DNA so it could produce an antibody to neutralize tetrodotoxin, a powerful poison found in pufferfish and other marine animals. There is currently no approved antidote for this toxin. So these folks said, hey, there's no approved antidote for this toxin. What can we do? Can we use hookworms? Can we mess with them, mess around with their DNA to not only make them do this job, but produce this antibody? Wow.
Ralph, it honestly, just at this level of the article, I will say, it sounds like someone figured out a way to bilk research dollars to make their next super weapon. They're like, oh, it's hookworms. It's like, oh, interesting. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to make them incredibly poisonous. There's no cure for this poison. And they're going to deliver this just internally, continuously. And Ralph, it sounds like a mad scientist, best idea. But yeah, I guess it's good somehow.
Yeah. It's really the whole idea of using living creatures to do this job is so different from what you and I have talked about over the past number of years, where maybe they take small robotic devices and inject them into your bloodstream and they're targeting cancer or they're delivering medicine. This is so different from that. This is going, can we take an animal, a creature, and modify it to do some positive thing? But going on with the story, the researchers infected animals with the engineered hookworms and found that the worms successfully released the antibody in question into the host's body, where it helped neutralize the poison. Now, this is really good. This is fascinating. Hookworms are attractive for this purpose because they can live in the human intestine for years and naturally secrete molecules into their host. Now, important,
Yep.
it seems gross, but here's the important part. These hookworms cannot multiply inside the body, so the number of worms remains controlled. If needed, they can also be eliminated quickly with standard anti-parasitic medication, so that's good. But just the thought that you'd have these little guys down in your gut, even though it might help you overcome a poisoning situation, it's still creepy. The researchers,
I was going to say, I think that's a big one for myself, and I'm sure a lot of other sane people out there, is just the idea of purposely infecting yourself with a parasite. I mixed up tapeworm and hookworm before. But tapeworm, like, this is something that if you're a pet owner, you are dreading constantly and, constantly, vaccinating against.
Mm-hmm.
But Ralph, this is, again, it's repulsive, but it really shows that science, researchers all over, they really don't see it that way. They just see it like, oh, this is a mechanism, this is a tool, and hey, what can we do with this? And that is something that I really take for granted, I guess, from researchers, that they're looking at ideas that I would never consider.
Yeah, that's, again, that whole, and I also kind of wondered, did they use artificial intelligence and ask an artificial intelligence large language model what creature could theoretically do something like this? Maybe that helped them come up with this idea of using hookworms. Who knows, right? Going on, though, the researchers believe this technology could eventually be adapted to deliver many different therapeutic proteins, especially for intestinal disorders such as Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. So here's where it comes into the potential for doing other things other than administering a antidote to a poison. So this could be very, very significant potentially, even though it's kind of a gross out to say to the patient, guess what? I'm going to stick some hookworms in your gut. And don't worry, they can't multiply and they're going to do a good thing for you. I think probably if you're a sufferer of Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, you might go, whatever it takes, doc, go for it. However, this work is still in early stages. Again, an example of the early research that often is the case with all the stories we do. And further research is needed to improve effectiveness, and ensure safety before human use. This is clinical trials. The study represents the first successful creation of genetically modified human hookworms that can continuously produce a functional therapeutic protein inside a living host, opening the door to a new type of long-lasting, I love this, living medicine. Living medicine. There's a great new buzz term you can use to impress yourself and your friends.
Living medicine. Yeah, just medicine that continuously kind of operates. And by the way, Ralph, because this is a computer show, in case anyone forgot, I wanted to tie this into helpful malware for anyone out there who remembers all the way back in 2003. If you do recall the Welchia worm, if you were working in cybersecurity back then. Ralph, have you heard of the Welchia worm?
Yeah, it vaguely rings a bell.
Yep, it is. It was a virus that would go into your computer. It was released the same way that the virus that it was trying to treat was released, and it would go into infected machines, see if you were infected with the malware, or if you had a critical security flaw not updated. It would force the download and updating of the security flaws, patch your system, and then delete itself. Wow. The worm being the blaster worm, the blaster malware that was going around back then. So, Ralph, kind of the same thing.
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
There you go. So very cool. And let's get that picture off our screen. We don't need that. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching along, you may know story number 4. That's about all the stories that we do for the day. We try to keep the show a bit more condensed and, for your ease of listening. But that doesn't mean that, Ralph has found any less stories or doesn't do all the work. We still make him do 2 hours worth of work. It's just, we only do 30 minutes of actual work. So with that being said, if you go to the show notes, scroll on down past story number 4, you will find honorable mentions. And these are stories that are just as good, just as impressive. Ladies and gentlemen, if you end up on the honorable mentions list, it just means we ran out of time. These are awesome stories you should know about, and Ralph puts them in with sources, links. You can go ahead, click it, and see what these stories are all about. So if you're craving a bit more, you can go to computeramerica.com and find these in the show notes. But Ralph will at least give you the headlines so you know what to kind of look for. So Ralph, go ahead.
Yeah. We have 4 honorable mentions this week, as usually is the case. We have 4. This comes from IEEE Spectrum headline: Robots could turn e-waste, electronic waste, into a source of legacy chips. Subhead: this startup wants to recover usable RAM before circuit boards are shredded. It's a great recycling story. We're getting there every single day, closer and closer to doing some really good things with electronic waste, which is a big, big issue in the world today, especially, of course. Next one comes from sciencealert.com. Headline: scientists found a remarkable way to help kids like vegetables. Now, I have to say something, but we are not going to cover the whole story here, but what this is all about, they discovered that exposure in the womb shapes later food preferences. And this UK study found that toddlers reacted more positively to vegetables their mothers consumed during late pregnancy. Okay. I had to take time to do that because I think that's such an interesting thing. And if you're an expectant mother, pay attention to that little bit. And the next one comes from BGR.com. Headline: this groundbreaking hydrogen engine could rival diesel power without the emissions. Really cool research coming out of Germany. You should check that out. And let's see, our last one is medical news related. It's News Medical Life Sciences is the source. And the headline here, this is so important. I could definitely relate to this, though. Thank God I haven't had melanoma yet. I've only had the basal cell and squamish so far. But here's the headline: new thermal imaging system detects early melanoma before it is visible. Before it's visible. Whoa.
Yeah. And I can't even imagine because, Ralph, by the time people find out about this, they're like, well, that mole's getting bigger and angrier and hairier, it's, and then you find out later. So this is really incredible. Early detection means everything.
Yes.
For
incredible.
This, for this disease. So Ralph, really amazing stories. Let's get that off our screen too. Lots of fun pictures, ladies and gentlemen. And you can find those more at computeramerica.com, wherever podcasts are heard, YouTube. We really appreciate it. And everyone, thank you so much for tuning into Computer America. Ralph, thank you, as always, for putting these stories together. go all the way back up here to the top. And ladies and gentlemen, again, happy Father's Day to everyone, Ralph included, and do something fun this weekend. We will catch you here next time. And hey, we hope that you enjoyed the Computer America Show. And every Friday, Ralph joins us to talk about amazing stories. He never seems to fail. He finds stories that, honestly, again, throughout the week, paying attention to a lot of things, but these are stories you should pay attention to every single week. So once again, Ralph, thank you so much. Everyone out there, thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Have a good one. Bye, everyone.